Okay, I'd like to welcome you to lesson number 5 of Understanding Bible Prophecy. And if this is the first lesson you've looked at, you're probably thinking, number 5, well, what about 1 through 4? Or is there something beyond this? And the answer is yes, there's something beyond this, and you've already missed 4 lessons. Please continue with this lesson, but also can I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will make it easier for you to locate the previous lessons that you've missed and also to be informed of additional lessons as they become available. Simply click on the little guy, yeah, that's me, in the lower right hand corner of your screen, or you'll see the red word subscribe. Click on that and it'll step you through the process. Okay, let's move right along. We have been looking and we'll continue to look at Bible prophecy as if it were pieces of a puzzle that are to be properly assembled in the fashion and order that God intended to put together the proper picture. And when we talk about proper picture, when we start to get into the tribulation period and the book of Revelation, there'll be a lot of color for the picture. The book of Revelation is a vital part of our understanding of Bible prophecy, particularly the time period known as the tribulation period. But without the foundation of the book of Daniel, it's so easy for a student of Bible prophecy and end times to get led astray. The book of Daniel is vital, and we need to spend a little more time in the book of Daniel to get our foundation established. The angel Gabriel revealed to Daniel how the people of Israel and the city of Jerusalem would serve the role as God's prophetic clock. Daniel was a captive from the Babylonian destruction of the nation of Israel and their freedoms, the carrying away of much of the population into Babylon. And Jeremiah the prophet had previously predicted this cataclysmic and horrible event was going to happen to the people of Israel. And again, I want to say when I use the word Israel, I'm in reference to the descendants of Jacob, not to be confused with the northern kingdom of Israel that had fought in the civil war and broken away from the southern kingdom of Judah. That was a temporary thing, and Israel is now in reference to the descendants of Jacob who had received the promises of Abraham through King David. And that's enough said on that. Jeremiah the prophet had told that this captivity into Babylon was going to last 70 years. And Daniel is now an old man, and he's praying. He's like, well, we keep a track here, and we're getting pretty close to that 70 years of captivity. God, are we about ready to end this horrible time of judgment? And an angel was sent to Daniel, an angel we're going to hear more about later on in the New Testament, is Gabriel. And Gabriel said, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. Not 70 years, but 70 weeks. Now, if you don't understand the word translated weeks, this prophecy becomes confusing because 70 years is much longer than 70 weeks. And the word translated weeks in our King James Version English really should be translated sevens. 77s, not 70 years, but 77s, are determined upon thy people, upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in an everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Daniel was asking about 70 years when they would get to go back to Jerusalem. The angel Gabriel says, I've got a much bigger, broader, important message for you. It's 70 weeks, and it takes it all the way to the end. The word for week in Hebrew means 7. It can be used for days or years. The same root word is used in Leviticus 25:8 regarding the year of Jubilee that takes place every 50th year after 7 periods of 7, or 49 years. So, going all the way back to the book of Leviticus during the time of Moses, the understanding in the Hebrew mind was that sevens could mean 7 years, not a week of 7 days. Therefore, the time period that Gabriel is revealing to Daniel is 490 years. 70 times 7 years. There are 3 parameters of the prophecy: A, B, and C, time period, nation, and city. The time period is 70 periods of 7 years. The nation is Israel. The city is Jerusalem. So here's how the clock ticks. 490 years, the nation of Israel, the city of Jerusalem, will be in the focus of God's attention. Okay, 490 years are therefore given to have these 7 things happen. Finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness. And notice to seal up the vision, seal up the prophecy, anoint the most holy. This is when it's going to start. Know, therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks. Nehemiah 2 contains the record of the command. We read it thus. Came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of the king Xerxes, sent me into Judah, into the city of my father's sepulchre, that I may build it. The command was given March 444 BC. This is a historical record. Okay, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. That is the time period to rebuild Jerusalem. And 62 weeks, or 62 additional weeks. So let's look at the math. 7 weeks, or 7 times 70, is 49 years. And that's how long it did take to rebuild Jerusalem. That part of the prophecy was fulfilled to the letter. And then after that, 62 weeks, or 62 times 7 years, would be 434 additional years. And that would take them up to the time of the Messiah being cut off. And the total of that is 483 years. 69 times 7. And that brings us right to the time of Jesus Christ. So let's calculate this. Yep, brings us right to March 33 AD. That's when Jesus was crucified, right at about what we consider to be Easter of that year. The cutting off of the Messiah is what was going to happen, which occurred in 33 AD. Is not the end of this amazing prophecy. After 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. and the Messiah was killed, but not for himself. He died for us. He died for our sins. So let's take a look again. 7 weeks plus 62 weeks. That is 7 plus 62 equals 69. But the prophecy said there would be 77s. One period of 7 years is missing from this. One period of 7 years yet remains. This takes us to the restoration of the city of Jerusalem. This takes us to the cutting off of the Messiah. But where's that last week? 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. The final remaining last 7 years happens in the final prophetic generation. 77s are determined upon thy people, upon the holy city, to finish the transgression, make an end of sins. Brings us up to what the Bible calls the tribulation period. It is a 7-year period of time that's divided into 2 segments, each being 3.5 years or 42 months. And let's take a look at this prophecy as it continues. He, and we have to identify who he is, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Here's that last week, for 1/7. And in the midst of the week, he will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. This has to do with technical terminology in the Jewish temple. The temple will be the place of sacrifice and worship for the Jews when he makes some agreement with them, a covenant, which will last for 7 years. But in the middle of that 7-year period, he's going to put a stop to the sacrifice in the temple. So he's going to just cut that thing in half. And this is important for us to understand. Okay, let's look at this prophecy with a different graphic to see if this helps. The Messiah, after this time period of 62 plus 7, will be cut off, but not for himself. Jesus was crucified. The King of the Jews, who should have or could have ruled in a reestablished kingdom, was rejected. And this was during the time of the Gentiles, this time period that Daniel had been given by God, which included this image of a head of gold, the shoulders of silver, the midsection of brass, the legs of iron, the feet of iron and clay. And this prophecy given by Gabriel concerning the time period incorporates the previous understanding of this period or time of the Gentiles. The prophecy of Gabriel continues. The people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The Romans, after Jesus was crucified by Roman soldiers, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, just as this prophecy said was going to happen at some point yet in the future. And it gives us a clue that the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. Who destroyed the city? The Romans. They are the people of the prince that shall come. The prince that shall come is coming out of Rome, and he is not a good prince at all. So this time of the Gentiles, which began with Babylon, became Medo-Persia, became the empire of the Macedonian Alexander the Great and Greece ultimately became the nation of Rome, which straddles a time period that takes us far into the future, as revealed by Ezekiel the prophet, showing the amount of time that would transpire. And you'll have to go back to previous lessons to look at that. When we look at the Middle East today, we see it's primarily Islamic. When we look at Europe today, the Romans, we find that it is predominantly Catholic, Roman Catholic Church. The statue down through history of the last hundreds and hundreds of years has been divided into Rome and Mecca. The people of the prince that shall come will incorporate these two aspects of the Roman Empire, which previously covered Europe and the Middle East. This is its modern manifestation. Jesus was crucified, and then Rome destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. Jerusalem was trodden down of the Gentiles. Jesus said this would happen in Luke chapter 21, until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. This literally was fulfilled according to the prophecy of Ezekiel, right on schedule, May 1948. What can be expected now is the prince that shall come, indeed will come. It says in Daniel 8, in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, understanding dark sentences, shall stand up. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. The Jews consider this man the false Messiah. The Christians call him the Antichrist. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Therefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted. I was sick for certain days. Afterwards I rose up and did the king's business. I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. It's for yet a future time, Daniel was told, and we live in that future. The Apostle Paul, writing concerning this, says, the mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now letteth will let, or he who holds it back will continue to hold it back, until he be taken out of the way. Then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1, the Apostle Paul continues in his teaching on this subject of the Antichrist at the end of the age. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him. This is talking about what we call the rapture of the church, where the church is going to be resurrected and brought into the presence of the Lord, gathering together unto him. Don't be so shaken in mind or troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. He opposes, he exalts himself above all that is called God or is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Okay, here is that wicked prince. Here is that man that is described in Daniel chapter 8. And we're given more insight in the New Testament by the Apostle Paul, that the day of Christ will not come. The day of Christ is the tribulation period. And that will not come until this Antichrist is on the scene, and he is going to go into the temple in Jerusalem, which doesn't exist yet today, but the city of Jerusalem is now the capital of an independent Israel. The stage is set, but we're watching these end time events as they unfold. City of Jerusalem today looks like this. It's going to soon look like that. The temple will be rebuilt, and the Antichrist will go into this temple and declare that he is the God of the temple. A horrible thing. Today, there are those in Israel who are working very hard and diligently for the reestablishment of the Jewish temple worship and the reconstruction of their temple. Notice I have it underlined in red. The Temple Institute's ultimate goal is to see Israel rebuild the Holy Temple on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Okay, in this final visual in today's lesson, I want to do a recap of what we've learned thus far, but you need to go back and review lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4 to get deeper understanding of what I'm showing here. The Babylonian captivity, where the Jewish people were taken out of their homeland, where they lost their independent kingdom, began this entire series of amazing prophecies. The time frame for the Babylonian captivity was revealed by Jeremiah the prophet previous to it happening as a 70-year time period. 70 years, and then they were going to be able to go back to their homeland. This time period prompted Daniel to pray and ask for understanding. The angel Gabriel came to him and said, it's not just 70 years, it's 70 periods of 7, or 490 years. And this corresponds very accurately with the previous understanding that Ezekiel had received concerning the length of judgment for the Jewish people, beginning with the Babylonian captivity, and that was that their time of the loss of their kingdom was going to be lengthened 7 times because they were unwilling to repent at their return to the land of Israel following the Babylonian captivity. Daniel saw this as an image with a head of gold, and you're very familiar with the story. The prophecy in Ezekiel, giving us the time frame for this, points to the year 1948 in our modern calendar, and that was when Israel miraculously, after around 2,500 years, once again became an independent nation, exactly as prophesied in this amazing set of scriptures. Ezekiel, the prophet, also saw that after Israel became an independent nation, that Israel would be invaded by a northern nation that is identified as Gog in the land of Magog, which historians believe is modern Russia. That takes us to a 7-year time period where Israel cleans up the mess and they feel secure in their land. That time period is divided in half, 42 months and an additional 42 months. This set of prophecies, which we see here at the top of the screen, is in parallel with Daniel's prophecy that we saw today concerning the 70 periods of 7. This is the tribulation period. Jesus said in his amazing teaching, "Then shall be great tribulation." Daniel's prophecy shows that there is a time gap between the 69th week and the 70th week. And again, this has to do with the fact that the king of the Jews, when he came, instead of being given a throne, was nailed to a cross. And above his head were nailed the words, "the King of the Jews." And because the Messiah was rejected, because the king was rejected, the judgment continued as it was prophesied to happen by Ezekiel concerning the lengthening of the time of the Gentiles. This prophecy of Daniel then takes us not just to the time of the Messiah, but the fact that Messiah would be cut off, and yet into the future, that final 7-year period. We found amazingly that the temple, which was rebuilt when the Jews returned from their 70 years of Babylonian captivity, was additionally destroyed by the Romans. And that reveals to us the nationality and the, as it were, political, religious, cultural affiliation of the Antichrist that shall come. And he will, in the tribulation period, at the end of 42 months, go into the temple and stop the Jewish sacrificial worship, which causes us to understand that the temple must be rebuilt. And that's as far as today's lesson takes us.